Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Mack Flash 5, the show where we like to list our top 5 favorite movies fitting a certain topic. My name is Matt. I am here with AB. We are here with Scott. It's the three of us once again. How are
We're
you
back,
guys?
baby. What's up? How are you guys?
I'm good.
Good, man. Yeah,
how are you guys
solid.
feeling? You feeling okay? You
Yeah.
feeling a little off at all?
Always sad, always happy it's Tuesday.
I was saying Matt before we got on here that I just woke up probably about 15 minutes ago from a nap, so I'm like feeling good, but like also like just kind of like entering the fog. So I've got my coffee. That's going to help in that process. But yeah,
And I am shaking my
Chugged
9 beer hangover that from last night's Monday Night Football game. So yes, you and I are at the same brain capacity, I'm sure. I've been feeling horrible all day. That's my own doing.
probably the outcome of the game
Yeah.
didn't help either. I mean, whoa, had to get that on there.
I'm feeling all right as well. I was feeling a little laggy, and then I drank that giant cup of tea, and I'm wired now. And
Good.
I think it's safe to say that all three of us are doing maybe better than our list is concerned. We're doing characters with conditions.
Yeah.
This is going to be interesting. AB picked this topic. He'll be talking about it first.
Funny inside, Amy picked this topic back in April. I remember literally 2 lockdowns ago being at the gym when we plotted out the rest of the summer, and then ultimately we slid things other. So like we have had 9 months. It feels like to work on this list. It almost feels so.
And
yeah, I remember when you announced it. I was like, "That's great. That's unbelievable."
And it's going to be interesting because that right after it was announced, maybe a few of us let slip what might be on our list.
Mm-hmm.
9 months later, nothing.
Oh yeah, maybe.
Yeah,
it could be completely different.
I got nothing.
I told these guys I had like a
Totally.
slide with like 20 movies, and I did it up as I do with the animations and stuff, and I looked and I'm like shuffled, and then I did so up until like an hour ago, it was still changing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it mine kind of solidified over the last week or so, and like really solidified even last night. I kind of like was shuffling stuff around, and I came out with something I really like, but it's vastly different from what I had pictured when I was thought in my head about the topic. So,
and we are going to hear your number 3 right after I might remind everybody how the show works. After we come up with a topic, we go our separate ways and come up with our list of our top 5 fitting that topic. In this case, will be characters with a condition, and we'll obviously be talking about the films in a whole. Maybe just the characters. Who knows? We will talk about 3 of those in depth and have 2 honorable mentions each. AB, like I said, has picked this topic, so he'll be kicking things off.
So yeah, I picked this topic, and I kind of worded it the way I worded it with the character with the condition, so it kept things kind of open. I didn't want to be like a character with a disability, because it sounds kind of cringy, and also it kind of opens things up to even more than that. And on top of that, like Hollywood is kind of been famously misrepresented disabilities over the years and made them something that's kind of problematic. So I kind of like didn't want to just make it about that, even though that kind of where my list kind of went to. So my number 3 is a movie that Scott and I saw basically almost a year to the like basically 9 days from now. It will be a full year. It will be last year, and it was a movie that was the first one we saw after the lockdown ended. The theaters had just opened up. We went to see a movie, and it was one that I was super excited for. We came out of it, and Scott wasn't as enamored with it as I was, but I really like it. It's actually from 2019. It got pushed back. It's from Darius Martyr, and it is The Sound of Metal.
Okay, cool. Yeah, absolutely. We did see it. Yeah, okay.
Starring Riz Ahmed and Olivia Cook. And so this movie is about it's not really heavy metal, but it's kind of metal-esque. He's a drummer who's hearing rapidly it starts deteriorating, and so it's all about his journey through that and him dealing with that, and so he is on the road with his partner, who played by Olivia Cook, who is the singer of his band, who plays guitar and does like synth stuff. And they're a two-piece. They're a two-piece band. They're on the road in their RV, living in their RV while they're on tour. They one of the opening scenes has them playing, and he starts having this tinnitus where he's getting a ringing in his ears, and you get a feeling that this is something that he's kind of had before, and he's just kind of put off. But then, the next day he wakes up and his hearing is gone. He is like pretty much entirely gone. He can't hear. He starts freaking out, obviously. He is a musician. This is his livelihood. They're on the tour and he needs to be able to hear, and he can't hear. So he starts freaking out. His girlfriend Lou, and his name is Ruben, by the way. I haven't said his name, but his name is Ruben in the movie. His girlfriend Lou, it reveals in a conversation that he's an addict. He's a former drug addict, and who's in recovery. He's been in recovery for 4 years, and she starts to see the telltale signs of him slipping into an episode where he could possibly use again. So she makes a call to his sponsor, and his sponsor his sponsor finds them a place where they can go, and so it's in the middle of like rural Ohio, and it is this kind of like a house that's set up specifically for addicts who are deaf, and it's run by this guy Joe, who lost his hearing in Vietnam, and he can speak, but he is also deaf, and so he can read lips, and so he kind of starts to start helping Ruben through the process. And so one of the key scenes for me in this is and like this movie is him being deaf is kind of at the center of this movie, but it's really about identity and how he finds his identity. And so in the beginning of the movie, he finds his identity in his band and his music. Heavy metal and metal is like a very tribal group of people who love music, people who are metalheads. A lot of them will describe it as being a lifestyle. It's not more so than any other genre of music. Metalheads will say it's a lifestyle. And so he's built his whole life around playing music, and more importantly, his life around Lou, his girlfriend, and he's kind of built everything around her. And so when that all gets torn away, he's kind of having this crisis. And so he goes into the house, and one of the critical scenes is he's sitting at the dinner table with all these other addicts, but they're all deaf, and it's all silent, but there's the clang of the dishes, but they're all speaking to each other rapidly and in sign language. And so he's sitting there lost. And one of the great things about this movie is the sound is amazing, and it goes between hearing what he actually hears, hearing what he doesn't hear, which goes to silence and like the ringing and the distorted the audio, and then it'll have the subtitles when people are doing signs. But in this case, it doesn't have it, and we're on the journey with Ruben in it, where we don't know what anyone is saying at this dinner table. He's just kind of looking around. He's lost. He doesn't know sign language, and he's just kind of feeling as an outsider. And so as he is at this house, he's kind of feeling dejected. He's not into it. He starts talking about getting cochlear implants, and Joe says, that's not ideal. It's not ideal for you because you'll never get your proper hearing back. It's better to just accept it and be with us. And so eventually he starts to learn sign language, ASL, and so he actually learns with a bunch of children. He goes to this class taught by this one deaf woman who starts teaching him sign language, and he learns with these kids, and he starts bonding with these kids, and he starts bonding with people in the house, and they have a mirror scene with that opening scene with him now at the dinner table conversing and being a part of this family unit of people, and they're all signing together and all laughing and having a good time around the dinner table, connecting with one another, and he is accepted with them, and so he finds that, but ultimately, he starts, sneaking away and like finding out about his girlfriend Lou through the internet, which he's not supposed to do, and he like goes off on his own to get the cochlear implants, and comes back, and Joe basically says, kicks him out of the house because the whole point of that they're trying to tell people in the house is that being deaf isn't something to fix, right? It's not, there's no fix for people, especially people who are born deaf. There is no fix for that, right? And so him doing that kind of is an insult to the other deaf people there, and especially after they've taken him in and given him this home and kind of set him up, and he had offered him a job basically there, and I'll have to have this kind of a life, and he kind of threw that back in his face so he could be with Lou, which that was his girlfriend, that's his love. Ultimately, I won't spoil much more of that because it goes to some other places, but he struggles with that thing where he's built his whole world around this one thing, and it all gets ripped away. And you see the effect it has on him, and how he has to kind of accept where he's at, and the whole thing with the house is accepting, being at peace with who you are now, not who you were, and where you're thinking. And it's really powerful. It has some really powerful scenes in there. And one of the things I love about it, and what a thing, like I listened to an interview actually a couple days ago with the director, and he wanted to, one of the things he wanted to do was represent the deaf community to the utmost. And so everybody in the film, other than Riz and the one guy that runs the halfway house, Joe, who is portrayed as deaf in the film, are all deaf actors, and some of them aren't even actors. Like a lot of the kids are just deaf kids that they brought in to be part of these scenes, and they're all representative of that. And so Joe, the guy who plays Joe, who's Paul Perico, I think his name is, he was born to deaf parents, and so he grew up in the deaf community and knew ASL, and he's amazing. He's absolutely amazing in this movie. But one of the things I love about it again was this thing where the deaf community rallied around this film. They had these specials, all kinds of special screenings that people could go. They could go to these screenings, and they could watch them in through like the subtitles. Could watch these films and see themselves represented in this film properly, and it's just for me it's a really, really powerful film, and yeah, I just I watched it a couple nights ago, and I find more and more things to like about it. But yeah, that's my number three. My number three, Sound of Metal.
Okay. No, I'm gonna dive in. When you said we saw it, that seems like a long time ago. I forgot all about that, but you're right. We did see that, and I'm a little less than you. So what I do think it's a great film. It's great, and I do enjoy it. There's some stuff in the third act that I think kind of is a little flimsy in the story. And once you incorporate people other than Riz Ahmed in it, I'm like, oh, okay, because Riz Ahmed's arc is incredible. From where he is, when he's selling off his stuff, when he's saving up money for the procedure, and when he's getting into the home, that's all great. That's all I want. And then the later stuff in the third act, it was kind of, I had a few unanswered questions, and I thought things were kind of blew through that I thought they should have added a little bit more depth in there. But as far as like a film too, I mean, I get why you like it a lot too, because you grew up in metal concerts and you go and you like that and that's your jam. That's not my cup of tea for music, but I admire the people that are and part of that lifestyle. So again, that resonates better with you. But no, I ache in this movie almost to. There's another movie I did watch for this list, but it didn't make my list, and it's as good as it gets. And I don't know if it's on anybody else's, but that's the kind of movie like Sound of Metal where you go, the movie's good, but like for the performances are out of this world. Like Riz Ahmed is a star. That's a star-making performance for me, and that's
unbelievable.
He is Academy Award nominated, same as the Paul Raci in the supporting category, and that's what carries it for me, because I'm like, when I saw that, I was like, well, Riz Ahmed, ride or die from Nightcrawler. He's a full-fledged leading man in this movie. He's got muscle. He looks great. I get it, man. So yeah, that's a great choice.
Yeah, it was nominated for before I saw it. I saw it been nominated for Best Sound, and I saw the movie, and yeah, it was a lock for sure. As soon as I saw it and it was happening, I was like, yeah, this is winning. It also won for Best Editing in film,
which plays in part to that too. Like I think the way that it, like I said, with the editing, not just with the sound, but with the subtitles and the way that they worked all that together. Really impacted the film, because like I said, you follow through with him on his journey, and so there are times when you need to feel lost with him, and there are times you think, and I love that, like you're kind of with him the whole time, and you kind of like empathize with him, but also there's times where you're just like, oh man, like what is he doing? But yeah,
cool. Okay, so I'm going to set the stage for my list. This is going to be my number 3. So, yeah, this is very, very vague, and this was such a broad category. Characters with conditions. You can go all sorts of different illnesses as well too, and disabilities that we talked about too. So, I wrestled with the idea: do you put true stories? Do I put biopics? And if you guys did, that's great. I didn't put any true story biopics, and we'll get into different reasons. Those are, you could watch documentaries on those guys, or you could read books. So I genuinely took made up stories, but I wanted to focus on movies that, like I said, if I had a disability, or if focus on a disabled character, a lot of those other movies that have been okay glorifying mental disabilities with a perfectly capable actor portraying it, sometimes it's a little messy.
Sketchy, yeah.
Of course. And that's how we'll talk about the big one, worked its way right off my list from 1 to not even on my list. And that's the big one. We'll get to that perhaps on somebody's. But for my number 3, there's a movie. When it came out, it's a very, very, very small movie, almost an independent movie that came out in 2019. And I remember I had some friends at my previous job, 2 jobs ago now, and they were like, Scott, you're going to love this movie. And I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, for sure. It sounds lovely. And I never really watched it. I kind of caught bits of it, and that's okay. And I know Andrew was telling me about it once. I think he and I talked about it, and he'll know why. But I never really watched it. But then when you talked about this category back in April, as we discussed, I was like, oh, I'm going to watch this right away. Watched it then, loved it, watched it again a week ago just to solidify. And I'm talking about 2019's The Peanut Butter Falcon.
This jumped on and off my list all like for the last 9 months. This has been
this was locked. I don't think I mentioned it too, because I watched it right after you said the list. I was like, I'm finally going to get around to watching The Peanut Butter Falcon. And then I was like, okay, this is always on my list. It was always going to be my number 3, and things changed and shuffled around it. When I say things changed, everything changed on this list. But for a multitude of reasons, I want to spotlight The Peanut Butter Falcon at number 3. And then, like I said, it's 90 minutes. It's like 92 minutes. It's an easy, fast watch. And then I put it on my one computer screen while I was working on my slides, and was like, God, this movie sings. There is no fat on this movie. It is a lovely, enjoyable, feel-good film. So you're introducing in his first film role an actual actor with Down syndrome, Zach Gastagan, and he's playing a character named Zach. And in it, he belongs to the state, and he lives in a old age retirement home. And his best friend there is in it. I wanted to put his name on this too, but he's in it for 3 minutes. But it's Bruce Dern in a great old man performance.
Yes.
And basically, so what it is Zach is obsessed with wrestling. Are like we all are. I certainly am too. I like it. There's some cameos from some pro wrestlers, but he wants to be a wrestler. So what he wants to do is escape the old age home because he shouldn't be here. Why am I here? And Dakota Johnson, who's a delight in this movie too, she plays Eleanor. She's in charge of it. The one good thing, we're going to circle back, this movie really utilizes their talents. This is probably going to be one of the last Shia LaBeouf leading man likable performances. That dude has been canceled 15 times, and I don't know if he's able to come back from this, but he is a goddamn star in this film.
Yeah, he's fantastic.
He owns the screen, and he is so enjoyable and awesome in this movie. Same with Dakota Johnson. Dakota Johnson really needed this because she was toxic with the 50 Shades stench, and she comes to this, and you're like, I like Dakota Johnson. There's something about her. So Zach escapes. He crosses paths with Shia LaBeouf, who plays Tyler, and he's basically your hillbilly redneck, dropped out of grade school, and he's been working jobs, and he double-crossed some guys, John Hawkes and his friend there too, took their money, and basically he wants to live a Mark Twain lifestyle, referencing Mark Twain as well too, but it's very much that kind of film down in the southern Tallahassee style Mark Twain setting. He and Zach get together, form an instant bond, and they are immediately connected, and they're friends, and Shia takes him under his wing as like a little brother, because you see in flashbacks, with literally no lines, John Bernthal, megastar John Bernthal, is his older brother. So now he remembers how his older brother treated him, that he wants to be the older brother for Zach. So there's a lot of good stuff there. As they're going through, because he wants to get him to this wrestling school that's run by Thomas Hayden Church. That's his favorite wrestler, and he runs the school. Dakota Johnson ultimately finds them, but in a nice but tense showdown between her and Shia, Shia kind of states the case why they need to get Zach to the school. And, if you keep treating Zach as if he is just a Down syndrome kid who's in need of help, that's all he'll ever be. But Shia is a little rough with him because he knows the world is rough, and he said, hey, he's better than that. He can handle this. If you don't let him fly, he will never fly. So again, it's a lovely movie. They ultimately get there. There's some cameos from some real life pro wrestlers. Thomas Hayden Church is the wrestler who runs it. He has favors, calls him in through Jake the Snake Roberts and Mick Foley, who have small cameos in the film. And so ultimately they get there. I won't spoil anything else for what happens as well too, but it ultimately ties for a very lovely film that does showcase that there's a line in the movie, what friends or the family we choose, and you really feel it with this movie. And at the end, you're like, oh boy, this is a lovely family dynamic, and I get it. So for the movie, I watched right away and immediately, and almost bookended my watch list through the summer and the fall with this, but I couldn't. I'd be remiss if I didn't include in my number 3 the Peanut Butter Falcon, which is Zach's wrestling identity gimmick. He is the Peanut Butter Falcon, and it's so good, guys. This is such a feel-good movie.
It is like the most wholesome movie of that year.
He is so likable and charming. It's his film debut. Gosh. He is the cutest man.
Yeah, and he's adorable, and it just you just come away from the movie just feeling so great. And I watched it, and at that point too, like you said, Shai was when it came out, he was already in trouble, and so when I saw that it was a movie about wrestling with him with a kid with Down syndrome, I was like, oh man, like I watched it and I was like, wow, just blown away by how like uplifting and wholesome and just feel good that movie was. And it was unbelievable.
And like I said, it is dark in a few instances as well too, because Shia has a dark past, but again, it shows that people can grow and things like that, and he's always good and pure of heart, and that's the thing. It's his decisions that otherwise kind of put him in his predicament. But like I said, in the same way as, they get on a scamp adventure through the southern lakes on a raft, a Mark Twain, Huck Finn style adventure. It is that kind of movie. So yeah, exactly. Wholesome. Yeah, it's great. I could watch it right now and be like, this movie rules.
I'm so happy you put it on there, man. I'm so happy.
I didn't tell you. I didn't want to tell you I
off.
watched it because I watched it right away and was like, this is awesome. And then I was like, I'm not going to tell him I watched this because I wanted it to be a surprise. And then ultimately 9 months later, but I'm at this moment where, yes, I've watched the Peanut Butter Falcon multiple times.
Excellent.
Okay. I feel like my list is going to be dim compared to your guys, because those are two great movies, and I think you guys are just going to outshine me completely. My number 3 is actually it's pretty much a cheat. I squeezed this one in, and you guys will understand why it's a cheat. But for anyone who hasn't seen the movie, allow me to explain it. My number 3 is Primal Fear.
Ooh, okay.
Oh my God. The rules.
Yeah, I love this movie too.
Okay.
Yes.
Tell us the condition he has, Matthew.
The movie
this to me, hold on. You and your sister are related, because I think that this is a character with a condition movie in the same way that your sister thinks American Hustle is a getaway couple movie.
Right.
Show me where it is.
But that's why I put it up on front. It's a cheat, and I'm squeezing it in. Primal Fear stars Richard Gere and Edward Norton. Richard Gere is a defense attorney who likes to have big profile cases, and he likes to get his clients off with technicalities. A case he watches on the news is that Edward Norton's character, named,
is it Aaron?
It is. Named Aaron is being arrested for murder of a local priest. This takes place in Chicago. So he decides to take the case, and over the time of interviewing Aaron, he kind of pushes him over the edge a little bit and discovers that Aaron has a split personality, which he shares with his other side, Roy. Roy confesses to the murder, citing that the priest, sexually abused him. His father hit him, and the priest forced them to have sex with another female parishioner. Aaron is a altar boy for the church. Now this comes out after Gere has entered a not guilty plea for him, so he can't go back and enter guilty by way of insanity. He just won't do it, either legally or whatever keeps him from doing it. He can't do it. So he puts him on the stand, and eventually he puts Aaron on the stand and gently asks some questions, and then turns him into a hostile witness, starts yelling at him, which brings Roy out front and in front of the jury and the audience and the judge and the prosecutor. Curses out everybody, and clearly there's two different people living inside this boy. The judge sends the jury into another room and has a bench trial, saying, I'm finding him not guilty by reason of insanity, and I'm sentencing him to the psychiatric hospital. Now, for anyone who hasn't seen the movie, skip ahead 30 seconds. Richard Gere
spoilers
goes to Aaron's cell. He's still in a holding cell. He's ready to be transported to the hospital. And Aaron lets slip a little bit of information that Roy had obtained and that Aaron shouldn't know about. So it's clear to him and everybody else that Aaron has been faking this split personality disorder, and he's gotten away with murder, essentially. Mm-hmm. He'll be in the hospital. He'll, pass every test they give him while he's under their care, and then probably be released in, 6 to 12 months. And Primal Fear. You guys love the movie. I love it too. My number 3.
No, it counts.
Yeah,
I was just,
I 100%
definitely counts. The whole movie is about split personality.
Exactly.
It's the textbook. It's the textbook. I have another split personality coming up, but it's the textbook on what the concept of split personality is and how does one black out when one takes over. And then you get the long scene when Edward Norton is all cool guy getting cigarettes, and he and Gere are having like a long monologue, and he's kind of getting the plan. But it's like a Hollywood fictionalized version, but ultimately, if you were going to write a paper on what split personality is, Primal Fear is a good place to at least get a gauge of it. It's not done silly like Me, Myself, and Irene or anything. But again, what I really like, and one thing that's, again, everyone talks about Primal Fear. There's some great behind the scenes stuff. There was like 700 people who auditioned for that role, and Ed Norton got it. And like there was Tom Damon, they all wanted it, and Norton was this relatively unknown, and he got it, and it's just a meteoric rise. And obviously the similarities to Fight Club, that's why he got that role too. But the one thing that I think is really slept on is Gear's performance. Gear is incredible in this movie, and then ultimately where he's at the end when he finds out about the split personality and he knows, and he's just like, I tried to do the right thing, because he's a slimeball attorney who works for free because he wants the clout, because he knows that he'll be on every newspaper and every station. But at the end, when he's kind of just walking out and then he's just like pondering upon it, it's really good Gear acting. He's always like ragged on. He's never gotten a nom or anything for it. And he just like I said, where he's at the end, where he's like, I finally did the right thing. And then this guy like F's me. like so again, it's just great. It's a pie in the face on him, but he deserves it. And ultimately, Primal Fear is fantastic. That's a great choice. I didn't think about that. Our list rule. This category is awesome.
It is, yeah. It's very fun category, and a lot of like fun stuff. I mean, my list is definitely not fun, but there's some definitely fun stuff to be had here. And yeah, I love Primal Fear. That was one of the ones where I watched it, and it gets to that moment and the bottom drops out. You're just like, what? Yeah. Like, what just happened? You know, so it's definitely a great one. All right. My number 2 is a movie that it's one of my favorite movies. I'll just go right out there and say it. When I watched it, I rented this movie based on the cover, and I didn't know anything about it. And it just blew me away. It's from 2011. It's directed by Jeff Nichols, and it is Take Shelter, starring Michael Shannon and Jessica Chastain.
Cool.
And so Take Shelter is about Curtis, who has a family, and I didn't remember this when I put it on, when I thought of it for my list, but then when I on the rewatch, he has a small family with Jessica Chastain as his wife, and their daughter who is deaf, and I totally forgot that part of it. So it's even more so in there. She is actually going for cochlear implants too, which I was like, whoa, that's funny.
Is this your DCU, your Deaf Cinematic Universe?
And so like that was just a kind of a side thing. But so what it is he works construction. He's just got a regular life. He's a good family man. His daughter has, I think it's not really explicitly said, but it's kind of had like, she had meningitis, so she could hear. She wasn't born deaf. She could hear, and then he lost her hearing through sickness. And so they're going for this. They want to get this operation. It's expensive, and so they're kind of saving up money for it. And so he starts having these visions, and so there are visions of this apocalyptic future and the apocalyptic storm that's coming, and so it kind of starts happening to him at night when he's sleeping. He has these visions as he's sleeping, and so he just thinks of them as nightmares at first, but at the same time they are very visceral. Like there's one where his dog attacks him and starts biting him on the arm. And when he wakes up, he has pain in his arm, and the pain lasts for a couple days. And so there's other things where he has these things that linger on physically after he even wakes up from these visions. So then eventually he starts having these visions while he's awake, like while he's working. And so he starts to suspect that he is actually experiencing mental illness. There is mental illness we find out later that there's mental illness in the family. His mother was diagnosed when he was 10 as paranoid schizophrenic. And so he starts doing research into that, into whether or not he actually is experiencing these symptoms. And so he goes to his family doctor under the guise that he is sick. And when he gets into the doctor, he said, "Listen, I'm not sick. I'm just experiencing these things." So he starts talking about them, and so the doctor sends him to basically a therapist who kind of talks him through it. And he said, I've looked up these things, and I've looked up these symptoms and the things that I'm experiencing 5 out of the possible 12 already. And so she starts working with him. And so all the while he's having these visions of this impending storm. And so he starts to build this shelter, a storm shelter in his backyard. And so he starts, going into their savings, building this kind of like elaborate shelter with the whole like underground thing, and he does it all basically behind his wife's back, which comes out, and they fight over that. Eventually, he takes equipment. Him and his buddy from work, who's played by Shia Wiggum.
Yeah.
Yeah, and who's always awesome. He's always amazing.
In one of my movies.
And so the two of them borrow equipment from work, like when they're not supposed to build this shelter, and he eventually gets fired from work because of that. Both of them get fired, and so they have a fight because of that as well. And so basically, like, this guy, he starts pushing everyone away from him as he starts getting more and more obsessed with building this shelter and with this storm. And there's an amazing scene where it's almost the story is kind of parallel to like a Noah's Ark kind of story, where he has these visions of a storm that's coming, and he's trying to warn people, and he has this a blowout at there's a lodge dinner that his wife wants to bring him to, and he's kind of opposed to it. And they're there, and Shea Wiggum confronts him about getting fired, and they actually fist fight in the lodge, and which results in Curtis, Michael Shannon, having this huge rant about you guys aren't ready. There's a storm coming. You guys aren't ready for it. You're not prepared for it. You're going to be ready when this storm hits. And like 3/4 through this rant, he's looking around and he sees his wife and daughter, and he just breaks down crying because he realizes how crazy he must sound, and like he thinks. And so at that moment, like, his wife comes and embraces him and takes him out of the room and brings him home. And like it's a beautiful scene, just of like a wife supporting her husband. And like, I'm not going to reveal where it goes to later on, because it's incredible. It's got an incredible lesson, and whatever you don't look up anything past that, just watch it from that. I've kind of probably said too much already, but this is the film that I've thought about for years. I continue to think about it. I watched it the other night again. I've watched it a few times, and every single time it just nails me. It's just a powerful film about family, and like people dealing with mental illness, but then families coming together and having to live with that, and supporting the people within their families. And whether or not it is mental illness, you'll find out if you watch it. It's it's kind of, it may or may not be. So yeah, it's just a fantastic film that I just kind of stumbled upon it. I never hear it talked about ever, which bums me out, because it is amazing movie by a great director. Jeff Nichols also did Mud. He also did there's another big one I'm thinking of. Midnight Special with Michael Shannon. And Michael Shannon, to me, is just a powerhouse. Every time I see him in literally anything, whether that's Boardwalk Empire, who also is with Shea Wiggum as well. Every time he shows up in a movie, even something like silly like Man of Steel, where he's playing Zod,
he's good. Yeah,
that's what I'm saying. He's amazing. It doesn't matter what he's in; he's always bringing it 100%. And this is, like, to me, this is his crowning achievement as far as acting goes. It is an unbelievable performance by him in this movie, and I can't recommend this movie enough. So that's Take Shelter. That's my number 2.
Great. Is there a Gimme Shelter needle drop in it?
There's
When you
not.
said he was building, I'm like, oh, that would be a good spot for a Gimme Shelter needle drop.
It's not directed by Scorsese, so
Yeah, of course. Cool. Okay, well, we'll get to the good. Like a big one of mine. I was really excited about the 2. My list was always fluid, and I had a number 1 that has subsequently dropped off my list. Let's sell all your stock on that one. But this one was my number 1 until this afternoon, and then this other movie I put in that I feel I'm going to lose you guys on, but at least for this one, we can enjoy my number 2. And I did talk about having a split personality film on my list, and essentially it's the movie that all other split personality movies stand upon its shoulders, and Primal Fear ran because of the seeds laid from this film back in 1960.
I knew it.
That's
Where's your shirt?
It's my shirt. It just came in. I just got my Norman Bates Psycho poster T-shirt in the other day, and AB asked me, "Are you going to wear it?" And I said, "Perhaps." And I went, "Oh, I've said too much." I rightfully so. This will probably be one of the best movies I put on this or any list. This movie is a masterpiece. This movie, at age 60, this is Alfred Hitchcock's complete apex mountain, to the point where he was utilized in the marketing for the film, and it hyped up the concept of a twist ending and the suspense and the violence when it's not, directly shown too. There's so many tricks of that. And it is one of the most iconic films of all time. Anthony Perkins plays Norman Bates, and in it, it's Janet Leigh. She plays Marion Crane, who is coming to stay to get away after stealing money, and she stays at the Bates Motel. And ultimately, you find out that as the film progresses, it appears that Norma Bates, Norman's mother, is off her rocker, and she's murdering people. And the shower scene itself is ultimately its own iconic thing. And Vera Miles wants to come and find her sister, and she does some investigating on her own. And ultimately, there isn't many people over the age of teenage years that don't know the twist of Psycho, being that Anthony Perkins, Norman Bates, is dressed up as his mother, and his mother's skeleton is preserved in the basement. And he hears her voice, and the show that comes in really dives into the blackouts that he experiences, and she takes full control. And that's ultimately where the movie as well divides, that he was the split personality. And that's what they say at the end, that the mother was in control. And now, when he's Norman, he's so kind, he wouldn't even hurt a fly. And that's where the movie leads. And then 20 years later, post Hitchcock death, we do get Psycho 2, 3, and 4 as well too, to dive in and flesh out a little bit more where he goes. But like I said, for just the main iconicness of this film, and for all the other stuff, the fact that it's shot in black and white too, in a time that color was very predominant. The movie before this was North by Northwest, and that was shot in Technicolor by Hitchcock with bright green credits, and shot on the side of Mount Rushmore. So that's the color's a thing in film, but he wanted to go back to black and white. And he found, the stories are legendary. He bought up copies of the book so no one could read the book. And obviously, pre-internet, pre-anything, but he didn't want anyone to get out and know the ending of the novel. So for that, this probably should have been my number 1 as far as it sets the stage for all twist endings, then the 60s, 70s, and then the big boom in the 80s and 90s as well, too. Certainly with the Shyamalan twist kind of has been harkened back to Hitchcock style, but this is the master. He's the master of suspense for a reason. And I would, if one thing I was kicking myself was not including this, and then the 2012 movie Hitchcock with Anthony Hopkins as Hitch, where it shows the making of the film here. And watching this first, and then that it's the making of Psycho. And that's a nice one too, as well too. So I can recommend that too. Go out of your way and watch the 2012 Hitchcock film. But like I said, guys, this is one of the most 10 most important movies of all time. It'll be it'll be one of the best movies on any list. If we're tying up this show, I mean, I can say reasonably, looking back, it's probably one of the few 10s that I put on my list. It pains me as I say it that it's not my one, and my one, you guys are going to groan and go, F this guy. But at least for this moment, let's enjoy this moment where I had Psycho. So yes.
I can edit this so Psycho's number one.
There we go.
Sure.
I mean, you said it's.
You don't have the skill or the steady hand for a procedure like that. Name the movie.
Oh,
super bad. I'll take your face like the face-off technology.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. You don't have the steady hand.
You didn't say lisp.
You said you had the twist ending, right? It's not just the twist ending, the twist of Janet Leigh dying.
Of course, sure.
Basically
dying at the 45-minute mark.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, you're right. That's slept on too. Slept on even by me. You forget about that because Vera Miles comes in.
Well, Janet Leigh is the big pull, right?
Yeah.
She's the big superstar, and like
so
even that
stunning in this.
Even
oh my gosh,
that is replicated, right? You look at something like Scream, where Drew Barrymore is on the posters of Scream. She is at the forefront of Scream. She's killed off in the first 10 seconds, and that is basically an homage to Psycho, right? It's like here's a thing that set the standard.
Also, the name Loomis.
Yeah, there you go. It's like it's a thing that's been Psycho's been replicated over and over again in
literally
in horror.
Thanks, Gus Van Sant.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, horrible. Let's never talk about that again. No, it's you're right. It's the gold standard for that movie. You talked about the final scene. That's the one scene I hate is the stupid doctor scene where he just literally like, well, you see, blah 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 blah, and it's like, oh, okay.
It's not so bad because Perkins's face and the close up and then the smile and the fly, that's all great. You get through it, sure, and no, I mean, it depends how you fall on exposition, and no one ever likes that.
I just didn't need it. I don't need to be spoon fed. I get it. He's off his rocker and thinks he's his mom. Like I don't need a doctor to sit there and like, spoon it out to me. But anyway, it's fine. I'm sure it was especially needed back then.
Of course.
Because now we know about all that kind of stuff, whereas people wouldn't know. But anyway, yeah, amazing.
Yeah.
Ridiculous.
It was my one, but I was like, I'll move it to 2. I know, but that's where we get in this age-old debate on and I explain this constantly to my parents when we talk about lists. My dad is intent to put the best ones. And I'm like, well, it's personal. It's personal. So if I have a 6 that I like more than a 10, you got to weigh the 2. So yes.
All right, Matt.
Okay, my number 2 correlates with another list that I'm going through for this month. This month I've been doing rewatching.
I should.
Rewatching.
I know what
Ridley
it is.
Scott's
Did you just watch this movie yesterday?
I just watched the movie yesterday as well because it came right. But it was on my list before I decided to do the rewatch of these movies, and just lined up perfectly that I got to watch it yesterday as we're going into this.
That's awesome.
My number 2 is Ridley Scott's Matchstick Man.
Awesome.
Now, Matchstick Man. This I think was a honorable mention for my top 5 con artists.
Con men, yeah.
Yep. So Nicolas Cage and his partner Sam Rockwell are con men, and they are at the beginning of the film. You see them sell water purifiers that they buy at the hardware store for $50. Get on the phone, sell them to people for hundreds and thousands of dollars, and then say, if you buy this, you're entered for a prize for a trip to Italy or a car or something else big. Then they go to these people and say, you've been with the fake federal IDs, and say, you got scammed. Now we can catch these guys if you hand over your banking information.
Oh my God.
Just double dipping on these poor people. Now, Nicolas Cage is a character who suffers from obsessive compulsive disorder, Tourette's syndrome, and he's agoraphobic. One day during his OCD routine, he spills his medication into the sink while the garbage disposal is going off, so he can't take his pills. He has a panic attack, cleans his entire house 2 or 3 times. Sam Rockwell comes by and says, I've been worried about you, man. What happened? I lost my pills. Sam Rockwell sets up an appointment with a therapist. Nicolas Cage goes in and says, I have these things. I need my medication. And the doctor says, well, I can't prescribe you anything without, at least one session. So he said, so they get through the formalities and the doctor hands him some pills with the promise that you'll get more if you come back the next week, and so on and so on. As these sessions continue, Nicolas Cage is spilling his guts about his personal life. He has an ex-wife. He probably has a kid and stuff like that. And, after a session, here's your pills. As part of his therapy, he's encouraged to try and get in contact with his ex-wife. He doesn't want to do that. He asks the doctor, can you call her for me? He says, fine. He does that. He gets back in contact with Cage and says, she doesn't want to hear from you, but your daughter wants to meet you. Mm-hmm. They set up a meeting. So he meets his daughter and starts a relationship. As their relationship progresses, his symptoms of OCD and his tics and Tourette's and his agoraphobia calm down. One night he's having a fight with her, or one day he's having a fight with her, tells her to leave and never call me again. That plus the fact all of his medication has run out, sets him off on a new panic attack. He calls the doctor. Doctor's out of town. He takes the pill package, an empty pill package, to the pharmacist and says, you have to give me these. Pharmacist says, okay, let me see. And he tells them these are supplements. He goes to the aisle where they are. He's been taking placebos. He goes to the doctor and says, you've been giving me these placebos? Doctor says, yes, your symptoms are a neuroses. You clearly don't need them. Mm-hmm. You've been taking a placebo and you've been calming down. While that's happening, he and Sam Rockwell are planning a big con against their mark. They stand to make
sick inside term.
They stand to make hundreds of thousands of dollars off this guy, and in the meantime, they con him. He finds out where Nicolas Cage is living and holds Sam Rockwell hostage and his daughter. And there's gunplay involved. Shots go off. Nicolas Cage ends up in the hospital. The detectives are there. They say, the guy didn't survive. Your daughter is being arrested for the murder and this and that. He has to see his doctor. His doctor shows up and he tells his doctor what he needs to know in order to help his daughter. You have to get her out of this trouble. Here's my banking information. She has a signatory card. She can get everything and get away safe. And he'll go to jail, take all the blame. He wakes up in his hospital bed and discovers he's been conned. The con artist has been conned by Sam Rockwell, by Angela, his daughter, who is not his daughter. He goes over to his ex-wife's house and says, the girl, you were pregnant when we broke up, and I've been meeting her. She's like, I don't know what you're talking about. She lost that baby before it was born. Oh. That whole event is certainly eye-opening for him, because they flash forward a year and he's got a new job. He's selling carpet. All of his neuroses seem to be gone. So something clearly just switched off. He just had like the worst moment of his life and discovered he survived it, I think, is what's going on in his head. Mm-hmm. He doesn't need the medication. He has no problem talking to or having contact with people. He can go outside, and while he's at work, Angela, the girl who's pretending to be his daughter, shows up, and they have a moment where it's like, I mean, there's obviously hate in his face, but it was just like, you conned me. She didn't get a whole lot of the money because I guess Sam Rockwell didn't give her cut. She got screwed as well. Now, Nicolas Cage is amazing in this movie. Mm-hmm. It's one of those movies where, because he's a 50-50 actor.
Not during this time. This time he's all on the run. He's the 50, but this era of Nick Cage, I think, is all leading man stuff. Yeah, he does like The Family Man, this Weatherman, Lord of War. Like, that's all 2000s Nick Cage. It's all good. He's still good here.
His his portrayal of someone with all of these symptoms and neuroses and stuff is fantastic. His twitches and his noises, his hoots, and his ability to censor himself when he doesn't want to swear and everything. And then when he's off his meds, he's having these panic attacks, and he's the complete opposite, or the complete other side of the spectrum of Nick Cage acting is just way over the top. Really fits this performance.
Totally.
Matchstick Man is my number 2.
Yeah, I saw this in the theater and definitely blown away. And this is one of the things that solidified too. You gave a lot of praise to Nick Cage, and rightfully so. But Sam Rockwell, this is one of the few, or not one of the few, but one of the bunch of them that came in a row for Sam Rockwell around that time too. That just kind of was like, this guy is unbelievable. And so the two of them together just made for an incredible movie. And then you obviously throw Ridley in there, the direction, but awesome. All right, now we're gonna go with some honorable mentions.
Okay.
So my 1, 2, 3 are pretty serious stuff. So I decided to go a little light on my honorable mentions to just kind of make it a little more fun. So my first honorable mention is 1985 Silver Bullet, directed by Daniel Attias, written by based on a novel based by Stephen King. And you have young Corey Haim, who is paralyzed and in a wheelchair until, not until, but he's still paralyzed, but his drunken Uncle Gary Busey makes him basically a motorcycle wheelchair that is dubbed the Silver Bullet. And it all comes into play when Corey Haim goes head to head with a werewolf who is bumping off people in the small town. And it is just a incredibly fun movie. And my other honorable mention is The Tale of Zadowich, from 1962, directed by Kenji Masuimi. And it is about the blind swordsman, Zaruichi, who is really fun. He loves to gamble and he loves to rip people off while gambling. And when they get mad about it and they go after him because they think he's blind and helpless, he dices them up. And so what's special about this movie is you can see beside Tale of Zaruichi has the number 1. This is the first of 26 films which were made over 27 years, from 1962 to 1989. 26 films, all starring the same guy as Zadowich.
That's Linklater's wet dream recording. Oh my god!
His name is Shintaro Katsu, and he played Zadowich the entire time in these things. And the picture on the right there, this is the Criterion. The picture on the right is the box set that includes all 26 films, which That's is wild. Every Criterion sale that comes around every November and July. I'm just like want to pull the trigger on that set, but it is outrageously priced because it's 26 films.
300 or
even on sale. What's the sale price?
The sale price is like 170, 180. So it's not terrible, but I'm always like,
sure,
it's pricey. So, but it's 26 films. I think I'm up. I think I'm up to number 8. I'm trying to eventually make my way through all 26. It's tough. It's tough just because it's a lot of the same kind of beats throughout it. And so but it's really fun. I was thinking about using it for our coming topic spoiler that we're going to be doing for gambling films. I was going to save it for the gambling films because he has a chance for gambling, but it doesn't play. It's not a full gambling movie. It's like,
that's what I mean.
So he's got a thing for gambling all the time, and that plays into it. It's not I wouldn't consider it a gambling.
It's like the pie chart.
movie.
Is this more disability movie or gambling movie?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
yeah.
That makes sense. I'm going to go a little bit shocker. I'm going to go more blockbuster, bigger name movies. Let's get some star power on mine. My first honorable mention. If I'm nothing if not predictable, happily put Silver Linings Playbook. That was one that I always wanted to at least get in this spot too. And then that was the one too where I was like, awesome. Bradley Cooper's here to stay. He's got star power.
and it's often praised for an accurate portrayal of mental illness, right? It's one of the ones that is on lists of like where people in the mental illness community of like doctors and all that kind of stuff will say this is a true portrayal of.
And the best thing about it, and the four main leads are all nominated for Academy Awards, and for good reason, because they all have their little idiosyncrasies that are different. You know, he's very manic, but you have his father, Robert De Niro, who doesn't understand that, but he's very OCD on football games, and he's got to watch the game exactly, and the remote's got to be this way. Yeah. And then obviously Jackie Weaver, his mother, she has her stuff too, and Jennifer Lawrence as well. And they all have their little different things, and then the stories come together and go, and this, and also kind of a little bit of a gambling movie, especially at the end too. So in the same way, true. That just hit too. So no, that was one I saw, and I rewatched a bit of it before for this, just scenes that are on YouTube, and I'm like, good Lord, these scenes, this is a rewatch. That's a rewatchable. This movie, again, I don't know if it's going to come up. Guys, Rain Man was my number one. And then ultimately, the more I think of it, I'm just like, this movie doesn't age well as much as I really want to like it. I mean, I can't really glorify performance of an actor playing mentally disabled. And I dropped it to 2, and I dropped it to this spot. And then I just ultimately dropped it. And I wanted to go something a little bit more outside the box. And if we're talking conditions, there's nothing better than Unbreakable from 2000 with Mr. Glass, trying to find people like him, people who, you know, he knows if he is the most fragile man on the earth, there's two sides to the coin. There is somebody who is effectively unbreakable out there, and he will stop at nothing to find this person. And again, you can see how when he finds Bruce Willis, how he treats it kind of like a disability, but he harnesses it and kind of goes through, and then kind of in a different way, as all disability should be. It's its own power, and he can use that. And as he copes with it, and again, how you get him and Samuel L. as two sides to the coin. And I'm not going to cheat, guys. I didn't include biopics. But if I was to include I would include one of my favorite movies of all time, and that's The Aviator with Leonardo DiCaprio's performance as Howard Hughes. But ultimately, it's a little bit of a cheat, because if you want to understand the story of Howard Hughes, read a book, watch some documentaries. But Leo's portrayal as excessive compulsive in this set across the backdrop of old Hollywood with a great stellar cast and a great veneer and look for it as well too. Guys, Howard Hughes, he's a daredevil ladies man with some mental issues. I dig it. So those were my honorable mentions.
Cool.
My honorable mentions include Me, Myself, and Irene. And Regarding Henry.
Excellent. Regarding Henry is fun. It's not fun, but it's good. It's great.
Yeah, it's a sleeper of Ford's repertoire. He could have gotten a nom for it. He certainly went for it, but he got it for Witness. But he definitely was great in that. I mean, I don't know around that time, but that's some of Ford's best work.
All right, we're at number 1. So when I said, Scott, that I was afraid that we'd have the same number 1. I knew you were going to have a certain director on your list. I didn't know which one you would go for. I'm glad you went for that one that you did, because I went with his other one.
Yeah, okay.
So from 1958, directed by Alfred Hitchcock. We're going to talk a little bit about his other masterpiece.
I just rewatched that too.
With James Stewart and Kim Novak. And so this is a film with James Stewart, who is a former San Francisco police detective who has an instance where he's chasing a perpetrator, and he is hanging off a building. His buddy cop tries to help him. He ends up falling to his death. He witnesses it. And because of that instance, he develops acrophobia, which is the fear of heights, and also vertigo. And so a lot of people, and people, it actually has stemmed back to this movie. People think of vertigo as being a fear of heights, but it is not. Acrophobia is the fear of heights. Vertigo, you can get vertigo standing on top of a chair.
Shout out Andrew Despins, who's been battling vertigo for 2 years. Shout out my dad.
So it's the combination of the two, right? So you can get vertigo because of your acrophobia of fear of heights, but it's not. They're not. They're not some. They don't go hand in hand. And so. One of the things about this film is I don't know if I don't think he invented it. I think it was it was one of his cameramen invented the dolly zoom, which is famously used in a certain movie that we love called Jaws, with one of the most famous shots of Brody of zooming in on him as the shark attacks. And so it is super effectively used here when James Stewart starts experiencing vertigo and starts losing it. He is he gives up he's kind of not retired, but kind of left off the force because of his condition. And so a friend of his from college hires him to follow his wife, his wife Madeline, and because thinks she is being possessed by a spirit of a long dead woman who is in this painting that she's obsessed with. And so he starts falling around, and a lot of this movie is there's not a lot of dialogue for a lot of this movie, as it's just James Stewart following Madeline around the city of San Francisco to art galleries and to different various places, and he starts to become a little bit obsessed with her until she follows her to the bridge, the Golden Gate Bridge, where she jumps into the bay, and he pulls her out and saves her life, and they develop a kind of a little relationship going, and he starts uncovering this weird kind of thing where she's experienced this past life, ultimately leading to her going to this monastery where she jumps off the clock tower or a bell tower to her death, and he can't save her because of his vertigo. He can't climb up the stairs. He starts climbing the stairs, experiences vertigo, can't save her. Because of this, he goes into a catatonic state, and goes into this deep depression that he can't get out of. Eventually, through help of his friend Midge, he gets out of it, and he sees a woman who looks very similar to Madeline, with different hair, and he approaches her, and he starts to have a relationship with her, and through this relationship, he starts to be obsessed with her, starts to be obsessed over her appearance, and tries to make her look like Madeline, and like just starts to lose it mentally, and makes her wants her to be basically Madeline, because he has this obsession with Madeline, which ultimately he brings her to all these different locations that they went to leading up to the same bell tower, and they go up to the bell tower, and then it is revealed that it was all a plot for his old college roommate or his college buddy to murder his wife, and she was in on it. This woman was in on it, playing Madeline, and it wasn't actually this guy's wife. Spoiler. It's and so I won't say what happens. I won't spoil the ending in case people haven't seen it. But it's a tale too of like I said, I've kind of had a pattern between my top three of this obsession, and I love movies. If we go back and throughout a bunch of episodes, I love movies about obsession, where a character is obsessed with something and it consumes them, and there's kind of a madness that happens where it takes over their life, and they can only focus on this one thing. And so all three of my top three here have it, and here we have James Stewart, who is obsessed with Madeline, and he doesn't actually even love her. Like when you watch it, he's in love with the idea of her, not actually her. Especially like when he starts trying to make this other woman, who is actually the woman, into being this woman that he didn't even really know. But one of the cool things about Vertigo is that This is a movie that Hitchcock, while he was alive, famously kind of discarded, and it was kind of a flop. And he kind of, put it off to the side. It was kind of unavailable for a long time, leading up to after his death. And in 1983, they kind of brought it back out, kind of remastered it, and it got a very big remaster in the 90s. I think it was 93. They did the big remaster of it to the version of it we can see now on Blu-ray, and everything is that remaster, and it just looks fantastic. And like, I don't think people were ready for it when it came out in '58. I don't think we were ready to deal with what was going on with it, especially with James Stewart, because James Stewart in it, there was no real hero in this movie. There's all bad
He's
guys.
Awful. I can't wait
James
to jump
Stewart,
in on this. I'm jumping.
like James Stewart is a bad guy. Kim Novak is a bad guy. The bad guy, ultimately his buddy from college gets away. We don't get it.
There's a European alternate ending, but yes, there's a European alternate ending where he comes home, and on the radio it says that he's been arrested at the airport trying to flee.
He comes home to Midge.
And then she gets him a drink, and then he looks out the window, and that's how it ends.
Which sucks. Like, I don't want that. But like, this version is way better, and then just this idea that like, there isn't, everything doesn't wrap up nicely, and like this whole idea of mania, and thing that he ultimately loses everything again, and he gets the girl again, and ends up, oh, spoiler, losing her again.
Sure. But I think I want to piggyback what you said too. I know I just did a bunch of podcasts for this too, just because I'm doing all Hitch, and I got Hitch pods and stuff on the go. But
sure.
And famously, he disowned this movie because this was the one that his wife Alma, famous sounding board editor, writer, everything, she was in the hospital during filming of this movie.
Yeah,
and she got out and watched it and hated it, tore him apart for it. You can probably kind of figure. I mean, we know what Hitchcock's proclivity was for blondes, and this whole movie is about obsession and turning people into the idea of the blonde, and she didn't like it, so ultimately he soured on it as well too. So there's a little bit of that too, but she famously didn't. I mean, you got to imagine that she probably took herself to be Midge, and then they broke up, and then he was obsessed with someone else, and she's like Hitch, what the hell, what are you doing here? So there's like a lot of Hitchcock family drama baked into the concept of Vertigo in itself. So
yeah, I'd say this is my number 2 Hitchcock, my number 1 being North by Northwest, which is, like, to me, the ultimate Hitchcock. But this one to me is the most Hitchcock of all of his movies. Like, he like you said, it has the blonde obsession, but it also has the the plot, the plot of a plot, plus the obsessive character. Like, it's just got everything that you think of when you think of Hitchcock is all baked into this movie, and it's just a masterpiece. And it's like, it's insane to me that it took till like the 80s basically for people to like give it its due.
Yeah, 97 AFI's. It was AFI's number 1. I think it dropped down to like 30 now, but it was for a minute. Apex Mountain was being number 1 on the AFI Top 100.
There you go.
Great choice.
Thanks.
Okay. I don't know how to segue to mine. Okay. I've been wrestling with this one. Guys, we're out here. We're here. I don't know. This is my number 1. Personal taste. It's a movie I couldn't get on my list. I was ultimately going to use it for a future list if we ever get a chance to do miscellaneous movies. It's a movie that I wanted to put on my list, and for very good reasons. So I was kind of just thinking about it, going through, and like I said, Psycho was going to be this one. That would have been a nice moment. We would have really tied up with Vertigo and Psycho. I'm sorry we couldn't. I robbed the viewers, all 5 of them, the opportunity to live that. But couldn't lie to myself. My number 1 is going to be a movie about a character overcoming PTSD. Now, this movie is a bit of a period piece, so they aren't really familiar with the concept of PTSD as they are, because he's overcome with it due to fighting in World War I, and he has to go through some events, and he comes back from the war, and his life is in shambles, and he's pushed away the love of his life, only to get his groove back, his mojo back, with the help of Will Smith And guys, we out here. My number one is 2000's The Legend of Bagger Vance. I couldn't lie. You are one hell of a caddy bagger. So in it, Matt Damon plays a renowned golfer, Ranulph Juna of Savannah, Georgia. And he goes to fight in World War I, and he's engaged to Charlize Theron's character. And when he comes back, he's struggling with PTSD, and he's turned to alcoholism. He pushes everybody away, and he becomes a recluse, totally throwing away his golf game. He becomes friends with a little boy who's his idol. It's Harley, and it's played in this is all in a flashback in the 20s, but at the beginning, it's bookended by the final film role of Jack Lemmon, who's narrating. And he's talking about golf and comparing golf to life. And ultimately, that's the big metaphor that director Robert Redford, ever heard of him, was going for in this movie. So as he sees, he's getting back out there and he's kind of half drunk and he's hitting golf balls. And in the darkness, who comes? Will Smith as Bagger Vance, coming straight through the center, and Randall says, "I could have hit you." "Well, no, sir. I saw how you was hitting them golf balls, so I figured safe place to be would be directly in front of you." Beautiful. Volunteers to be his caddy in the upcoming tournament because they want star power. They want star power in it, so they want to get Randolph Jr. And he says, "I'll be for $5 guaranteed. I'll be your caddy, and I'll teach you all that." Oh, I always thought a man's grip on his clubs is a way of grip on his world, and all these imparting wisdoms. Guys, I get it. Does this movie have the magical Negro syndrome that is so commonly? Yeah. Is it cheesy? Probably one of the top 3 most cheesiest movies I've ever seen. But good God, if I wouldn't watch this movie 10 times in a row any given day. It is Will Smith imparting wisdom and chewing scenery and comparing golf to life and the struggles of up and down and all this stuff, and culminating in a great scene in the tournament where Matt Damon's in the forest. He hits his ball into the rough and he goes into the trees, and he's reflecting back and he's hearing the gunshots and he's really panicking and he's sweating. And that's one of the scenes later on that you really get the hammer home the PTSD and of it. He's about to move his ball to get a better lie, and Will Smith appears as Bagger, and they talk and they have a great moment, and the music's culminating, and then he hits it right onto the green. Redford was going for the Oscar. He said he got the 2 biggest actors at the time right here, and said, "Guys, we're all gonna clear space on your shelf. We're all winning Oscars." Again, does the movie falter because that? Of course it does. It absolutely does. They were all gunning for Academy Awards in this movie, but not so much. But again, like I said, to me, it's an incredibly underrated film. Anybody who knows me knows. If I can get a Will Smith movie on here, I will. And I couldn't lie to myself. I had to put it at 1. I think The Legend of Bagger Vance, for, like I said, how it overcomes, Randolph Jr.'s PTSD and ultimately winning the tournament and owing it all. And, he wins the $100,000 championship, and 10% of it goes to his caddy. But yeah, Will Smith's Bagger says, $5. So I believe there's a small matter of $5. Takes it, goes off. And like I said, is he an angel? Yes. Was he sent by God to help him? Yes. Is it schmaltzy and cheesy? Yes. Give me more of that. I don't care, guys, for all that, because, look at this poster. I like beautiful people. I like stars. It's a great poster. The most beautiful director on the face of the earth. Guys, Legend of Bagger Vance. It's a metaphor for life and overcoming our obstacles set against the backdrop of the game of golf.
Now, have you reached the chapter of Bagger Vance in the Will Smith memoir yet?
They talk about, there's a lot of, that's where it breezes right through that. The only movies that it really focuses, I know, the only movies he really focuses on are his first 2, Pursuit of Happiness and After Earth are the big ones that surprisingly he talks quite a bit about a lot. But he breezes right through this whole era, Bad Boys 2, and Hitch, surprisingly. So this is just part of the I'm a megastar. We're just gonna breeze right through this. Life is good.
I was just wondering if that Redford quote came from that book. It's and Redford told me to clear space on my shelf because they're all Oscars.
I watched an interview with them too. I just stumbled upon it on the red carpet at one of the Oscars. Wow. A year later after this, they were talking to him to it. But yes, this is a movie that when it came out was probably there was you can look at the trivia too. Redford had tried to make this for years with Morgan Freeman as Bagger Vance, and he was going to play Randolph Juna. So that was set up in the late 80s. He wanted to do that, and it just never happened. So then by the time he still had the rights, he was too old. He directed. But again, you're getting Matt Damon at this time off of Rounders, Courage Under Fire, Good Will Hunting, Saving Private Ryan. That's the next Bob Redford right there. Mm-hmm. So, and you chose right. You have the three biggest stars. Look at that. You have Charlize Theron, Academy Award winner, Matt Damon, Academy Award winner, asterisk, but yes. And then Will Smith, Academy Award winner. Ask me in March.
Well, you were definitely right. You were definitely right that we would groan with you putting that over Psycho.
I was doing so well.
Right. That's not the putting it on your list is not the groan.
I know.
That's
I
right.
was like,
the fact that you put it over Psycho.
Over Psycho. Putting that over Psycho.
Guys, and it bumped, it destroyed the Best Picture winner that we'll talk about in a second because I saw Matt's slides. I feel bad. But it bumped that one clean off. So it bumped a Psycho and a Best Picture winner.
All right, let's get into it.
Yes, Scott has alluded to, and he's made mention actually throughout the episode here. It's time for the big one, as he went on to call it. My number one is
definitely
Rain.
Definitely, guys, I love Rain Man. I love it, but please,
this is a great.
This is your time
movie. Yes.
Tom Cruise plays a car dealer. He imports Lamborghinis and sells them to clients in the States. He gets word that his father's passed away, and he goes over to the will reading, and he discovers that he will only receive a car that he's coveted that his father owned, and the prize-winning rose bushes. And the rest of the estate, totaling $3 million, will go to a trustee somewhere in Cincinnati. Tom Cruise investigates, and he comes across a hospital or institution for the mentally challenged or mentally handicapped, and meets Dustin Hoffman's character as he's walking around the car because he recognizes the car. And he asks one of the doctors, "Who's this?" And he says, "Raymond's your brother." So and obviously Dustin Hoffman plays Raymond Babbitt, someone who has autism and savant syndrome. He has strict rules on how he lives his life. Everything's got to be in a certain place. He's got to be somewhere at a certain time. He has programs he watches every day at 4.
Wapner.
At 4. He takes his meals at a certain time in a certain way. He I just lost my train of thought. He only buys his clothes at Kmart.
Yeah.
And as a form of protest, Tom Cruise decides he's going to kidnap his brother and essentially hold him for ransom. He's going to bring him to LA, and then because Raymond is there technically voluntarily, he's allowed to leave the grounds. But Tom Cruise essentially kidnaps him. He plans to go to LA and then wait for the doctors or whoever's in charge of that estate to cough up, at least half of what he feels is his, like $1.5 million. His first idea is to take Raymond on a plane. Raymond won't fly, and in an attempt to drag him onto the plane, we witness his first, what you would probably call a panic attack. He freaks out, screams, and starts banging his head with his hand. He says, "Okay, fine, we'll drive." So it's a bit of a road trip type movie. They stay at motels. They have to stay in motels when it's raining because Raymond won't drive when it's raining because he likes to ride with the top down.
Mm-hmm.
He'll only ride with the top down. If the top down can't be down, the top can't be down if it's raining. So they stay in motels for probably like 2 or 3 days while the rain passes. Along the trip from Cincinnati to Los Angeles, they get to at least one diner where it's discovered that it's discovered about Raymond's recall. Bonnie Hunt, the waitress, drops a box of toothpicks on the floor. He's able to count them immediately and tell you how many are in there. He says like 247. How many are in the box? 250. Nice try, Ray. Well, there's 3 in the box because you can count toothpicks off the floor.
Seems kind of lame. I'm sorry. I'm trying to get in on this too. Every time when she's like, "Oh, there's 3 in the box," I'm just like, "Oh," but it get us to where it goes.
Right. Clues and hints like that, along with this is near the end as the road trip begins. All of Raymond's rules, like Wapner at 4, only eat this, can only be here at a certain time, really starts to frustrate Tom Cruise to the point of snapping at him several times. He goes to a doctor to try to get him examined, and the doctor educates him as much as he can about what autism is. They're in a backwater town, and where the doctor is, he probably treats humans and chickens in the same building. From Cincinnati to Los Angeles, there's Las Vegas in between.
Hell yeah. I get down with those.
As you get the Rain Man suite.
Along the trip, Tom Cruise discovers that the people who are trying to buy his cars are pulling out of the deal because he hasn't been to LA to finalize things. So he loses all of his investment and decides he's going to use Raymond's tricks at he's able to count toothpicks on a floor. Maybe he can count cards. They develop a system and break the blackjack table down to a total of at least $250,000 because that's how much he needs to get out of debt. Along the way, they certainly form a brotherly bond. By the end of the movie, the doctor says, "We'll give you $250,000 and we want Raymond back at the hospital." He says, "I don't want the movie. I want my brother now." The end of the movie is very heartwarming, but in the end, it's decided that Raymond will go back to stay at the hospital. And I think one of the last lines is Tom Cruise saying, "I'll see you in 2 weeks." And it ends there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, one of the things I do like about it is that ending, that they didn't kind of be like the Hollywood thing would have been like, "Oh, we're going to live together," which would have been insane. Right. Especially considering like Tom Cruise's character, even, the strides that he makes throughout the movie is in no way able to care for his brother in any way, shape, or form for an extended period of time. So I do like that ending, that they're like, okay, this isn't going to work, despite how much it's like, oh, that's so nice. Like, no. So I do like that part of it. But yeah, there's like I remember watching this as a kid and loving it. It's definitely a great performance. But like when you start, getting into it, especially like watching it now, it's like, oh yeah, it definitely, like Scott said, it doesn't age well.
There's a lot. So we'll get, and yeah, it was my 1, it was my 5, it was everywhere on, and I wanted to ultimately take it off. It is, like I said, it's an easy target. That, yes, and Hoffman. I did a deep dive into Hoffman stuff and notoriously what he's like on set, and I'm a big Cruise mark, so it pains me that Hoffman got the lead actor Oscar for it, and I'm like,
because Cruise is unbelievable, and
that's what I mean. And you don't get this Cruise anymore, so that's the reason why too. And you look at Rain Man, and it wins Best Picture, and you're just like, where's this Tom Cruise? You'll never get this Tom Cruise back. You get glimmers of it in kind of A Few Good Men, but that's a big blockbuster, and then Jerry Maguire as well too. But that's ultimately '96 is very much the Divergent year because it's the same year that Mission Impossible comes out, and then he's out. By the time he does the Eyes Wide Shut Magnolia, he's like, I'm a different Tom Cruise now. Mm-hmm. But this is Tom Cruise I love. This is great. This is great 80s Tom Cruise. This is the culmination. He's in the Best Picture. And that's I do love this movie. But again, it's an easy target. It's parodied in The Hangover, but again,
it's everything. It's like I said, I made the reference to the swingers thing. Right? Yeah. It's even references swingers. Hey, oh baby, we're gonna get the Rain Man suite.
But but the like I said, it's a fantastic choice. They have a great dynamic. I like that. Like I said, I think a lot of it's very Hollywood done. I think the toothpick thing is what 0.01% of people in the world could probably describe. Like that's not how it works. I don't think so. You can't just look and say how many toothpicks. I've always been like, oh, it's just like Hollywood like schmaltzing it up for But again, ultimately, like I said, it's a big movie and it won the best picture for it. And I do love it. And like I said, if Ico comes on, I'm just like, well, I'm watching. I'm done for the next 2.5 hours here. We're watching Rain Man. So yeah, no doubt. Great choice.
So with that, gentlemen, that is our list. Everyone watching, I hope you enjoyed what we listed. And we hope that you give us what your top 5 of this category, characters with conditions, because I know there's a lot of things missing. I had the 2 honorable mentions I had were not my honorable mentions 5 minutes before we went on air.
Wow.
Yeah. So there are plenty of movies that to choose from as far as everyone here wanting to comment their lists. But with that, who alluded it to before? AB alluded it earlier. Next episode, we are going to be doing movies about gambling, and I can't wait for this.
We've been like, it is unbelievable that, like, we can talk about it. It's been unbelievable that it has taken this long to get to this point for us to get to this topic, because we all love this topic. We all love movies.
It's wild.
And we've been circling it for like the entire time, and it's finally come. It's time, guys.
As true as that is, I could not be happier that we'll be doing it in 2 weeks rather than having done it 6 months ago.
Sure.
Yeah. So with that, everybody, like, share, subscribe, tell us your top 5 in the comments. AB, Scott, I've been Matt. We will see you next time.